Bucko, mighty Bucko, hello. Greetings and welcome to each one of you. Got a strange one for you today. What do you mean they're all strange? You can't say that. Pandora's box. And I want to talk about Beck's, the Beck's. And by that, I don't mean Beck's beer from Bremen in North Germany or whatever David Beckham may drink. No, I'm talking about the phenomenon known to some of you as the black-eyed kids, and it's known as Beck's. But we'll come on to that in a bit. Pandora's box. Now, if I ask the question, what does that go back to? I'm sure many of you would say, scratch your head and say, well, it's Greek mythology. And you'd be right. The story of Pandora and her box. It was originally a jar, but over time it became a box. Prometheus had stolen, according to the Greek mythology, fire from heaven. And Zeus, the chief god, known by the Romans as Jupiter, Zeus, was going to execute a punishment. And so this box was delivered to Pandora, and out of curiosity she opened it. Now it appeared to be a very pleasant thing, very nice gift, but inside, that which would be released onto the world was death, destruction, sickness, and many evils. Now, I'm convinced that there are a number of Pandora boxes being opened in our world today. I'm convinced of it. And certainly, I've gave reference on a previous talk of mine on Odyssey, on zombie apocalypse, of those who have that, there will be babies born with, genetic defects. So, I came across there was a Spanish lady. I'll have to talk around it a bit, on the site that's called Brand New, and it begins with T. And she was a lady in a white coat, and it was an interview by Skype or one of these things, and she was asked questions in Spanish and there was subtitles, and she was convinced, like myself, there would be these defects. And she made reference to the fact that there were babies being born with big black eyes, of those who have had this before conception. And she says that it's quite numerous. Now, have you heard this? Now, I can't corroborate whether it's a truthful statement or not. I don't know if the story is factual or someone's having a laugh. But that's what she said. Now, if in time it turns out this is absolutely correct, we'll know, won't we? But it made me think on this whole subject of the Becks. Because you see, I'd seen a DVD by a Christian guy called L.A. Marzulli, American Italian. And I've got quite a number of his DVDs. And he delves into the supernatural. He delves into the whole UFO abduction stuff from the Christian perspective, the biblical worldview. And he goes all over the world hunting down Nephilim architecture. I'll come more on that sort of thing later on. But I'd read this, you see. And, I'd read the book. Yeah. And I'd seen this. So when this lady in a white coat, Spanish lady, said this, it made me think. Now, I'm going to come back to the Becks in a bit. But what about another Pandora's box? Oh, and by the way, I'm going to try to put a link to a song called Pandora's Box by a nice singer, one of my favourites, called David Francie, who lives in Canada. A song he wrote in 2013, and it seems to be quite relevant to what we're going through at the minute, although I'm sure he didn't write it with that in view, because he's not in the club, as it were, because he's a small, person in that sense. Go to one of his deep do's, you can sit there, meet him and sit down, have a drink with him and one thing and another. So, he's not a big flyer like these celebs. But, so I'm going to try and put it in, and we'll see. And that'll be good. Now, another thing, I'm coming back to the Becks, but here's another one. What about, this is a book I've been reading by Tom Horn and Josh Peck, called Abaddon Ascending, The Ancient Conspiracy at the Centre of CERN's Most Secretive Mission. Now, are you aware, I'm sure you must have heard of it, even if you've not read into it, of CERN, the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. And here it is, this enormous thing built underground, and the complex is on top as well. And it stretches miles, these things. And it says it's the largest single machine in the world, located on the border of France and Switzerland. Its purpose is to accelerate subatomic particles by the speed of light and force them to travel in a loop where they will then collide in an attempt to recreate conditions, etc., etc. So they're chucking these particles about. It's a big... what do they expect to come from this? And here's a question. What good can come from this? And how much is it costing? But all that aside, if I can find the clip, they've got, look at this. this logo of CERN, the 360s, yeah, and all these other ones. And outside, they've got a big statue of Shiva, the Hindu god of destruction. It's a big statue. And I know I met rather. He came in, a friend who a work colleague had brought in, and he was doing a bit of work at the CERN, and he was saying, yeah, it's all true. This thing's there, that big statue, and all this stuff. Now, what, in that sense, what use are all these things? What do they expect to come from it? What do they expect to find? Or who do they expect to find? Would you be surprised if this is like some portal, some Stargate, that they expect something to come through? They're expectant of it. What do they hope to find? I'd say it's a Pandora's box. Be careful. Something may step out. Yeah. And here's the thing. With, I believe there are areas in the world, certain locations and areas that are like portals, stargates, that these types of supernatural stuff like to come in and out, interdimensional beings. Now let me just read you from the scripture very briefly. From Genesis, the first book in the Bible, and you have the biblical character of Jacob. And it says, and Jacob went out from Beersheba, went towards Haran, and he lighted upon a certain place, and tarried there all night, because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place, and put them for his pillars, and lay down in the place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, angels of God ascending and descending on it. And then God reveals himself to Jacob and shares some things with him. And then it says, and Jacob awaked out of his sleep, and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Wow. Yeah. So we've got these sensitive places, these angels come and go, beings come in, and it's very true. And sometimes these places, they build structures all over the world, in the sense that people, they know these are strange places, what they would term holy places, they build things. Yeah. And so CERN, this is it. I'd say the Mount Hermon in Israel is another one, where the fallen angels came down. And that's another story. We'll come to that in a bit. But let's get back to the Becks. The black-eyed kids. Now, as I said, if it's true what the lady in the white coat, the Spanish lady, said on the site, about 3 minutes, you try and find it. Her last name was Brunet, and the first name was Vivian. See what you can hunt down and find, if you know any more on that. But the fact that she says, and it could be complete nonsense, or it's a true story. We'll know more in time. But it made me, as I said, go back and think on this. Now, what it's all about is this. The first, okay, simply put, it's this. One day, you hear at the door. Well, you open it up, and it's evening. Well, it could happen in the daytime. There's a couple of kids standing there with their heads down. And you're taken aback a bit because they're kids. But something, immediately you begin to feel something's wrong. And you say something like, hello, how can I help you? Are you lost? What would you like? And they say, we want to come in your house. And they say all manner of things, like, is it time for food yet? We want to watch your TV. We want to look at your magazines. This won't take long. Come on, we're only kids, let us in. You invite us in. And the person, man or woman, is frozen in terror. And when they look into the eyes of these children, it's completely black. There's no whiteness at all. Now, the first documented case, as it were, in modern times, involving the Becks, is an encounter that Brian Bethel first published in 1998. He was a journalist. He wasn't looking for fame or anything. He just put it up on the internet, wanting to know if anyone had experienced similar things. And, he was shocked at the response he got. And this was in Abilene, Texas, around 9:30, 10 o'clock. This happened to him in the car park. There was a tapping on his driver's window. And these sorts of questions. We want to go for a ride with you. We want to come back to your house. Just let us in, invite us in. And frozen with terror. And the people, as I say, that have had these experiences, they're frozen with terror. There's something really sinister about this. And usually if they turn round to see if they should get some sort of weapon to defend themselves, is what's going on. So when they turn back, the kids have disappeared. And if they walk out and just look around, there's a pungent smell of rotten eggs or sulphur. Foul stench. Now, there was a case before Brian Bethel, going back to 1950 odd, of a rural family in Virginia where the son coming through home, through the countryside, encounters a black-eyed kid who wants to come home, he says, to his house. He runs off, the kid, back and tells the parents, and they believe every word because that's the sort of kid he is and he wouldn't make it up. So they do their inquiries. They said nobody's seen it, but all the people around him in that area knew about it. Now, so what is all this about? The black-eyed kids, who are they? And what do they want? And why do they need an invitation to come in? Now, it's true, obviously, that the whole thing I've said, that this whole thing could be complete nonsense, or there is truth in it, because we know that there's con people, there's liars, there's all sorts of deceivers in the world today. We know that. But it's like the UFO stuff. There's enough people, there's enough cases. If you do, I've read some of Dr. David Jacobs' books on his those that he has interviewed and those he has under hypnosis regressed to talk about their alien abductions. And he's got cases, he's got files, people contact him all over the place. And there is consistent themes that come out. And there's enough allowing for kooks, allowing for silly things, people making things up. There's enough to make you realise, hang on, there's something going on here. Now, what are these children? They seem to be of substance, but somehow they can disappear. And there's something about them that's evil and sinister that scares the hell out of people. And after they've gone, people find it hard to sleep. They find it hard, they're nervous when people are knocking on the door. And it leaves them in a very troubled state. Sometimes these children appear just 1, 2, the odd time it's been 3. They've gone into apartment buildings, cars parked, shopping malls, the odd time in daylight. Their appearance is white, greyish skin, pale and pasty, but there's a greyishness which is a bit reminiscent of the greys from the alien abductions. Their clothes are a bit dishevelled, second-hand you'd say, or you could almost at first glance think they were street kids. But, and they want you to invite them in. It seems they can't do anything. Come on, invite us in, we're only kids. You invite us in, we want to come in. And of course, the people, after seeing their eyes, are horrified. And they want to run away. So what are they? Well, first of all, let's ask Bucko a question. Do you believe this, Bucko, yourself? As I say, there's enough evidence for me in the whole alien abduction things. But let me put it on record. I don't believe in aliens from other planets. I believe in interdimensional beings, and these beings would be the fallen ones, the fallen angels, angelic beings, demonic beings. This is my insight on it. Now, if this type of thing, if there is truth in the alien abductions, abducting certain people, taking eggs from females, sperm from men, and recreating something in their laboratory type things, wherever that is, of a blend of angel and human DNA, a hybrid, an angelic hybrid human being. Has it happened before, Bucko? Well, yes, and this is the thing, you see. This is the thing. It has happened before. In Genesis 6, it says that the sons of God, a reference to the angelic beings, came down, and the book of Enoch declares it to be Mount Hermon, where 200 angels, according to the book of Enoch, came down, and they gave knowledge to the people. They didn't just take the women and have relations with them and produce these gigantic monstrosities called the Nephilim. But they said they wanted to marry them and ask permission. And so when they gave their will and their consent, they did this and brought forth these giants. And to me, and people like L.A. Mazzulli and others, would see that these monolithic structures built all over the world, it would be the Nephilim, the Guborim, the giants of Genesis 6 that built them. And of course, they were destroyed in the flood of Noah. But then, after the flood of Noah, it said they again attempted a similar thing. When the children of Israel came out of Egypt and went into the land, who was waiting for them? The giants. They were there again. There was another incursion. And of course, Joshua, who led the children of Israel out of Egypt and into the land of Canaan, that became Israel, he was putting them to death everywhere. So in the end, they figured out we better clear off, and did an exodus from the Middle East and ended up all over the shop. And this is why you got the monolithic structures, Latin America and in our own UK. What do you think Stonehenge is? Do you think they wake up one day, we're going to transport these enormous blocks and we're going to... It's difficult, particularly when they're up mountains and things, these things built. How do you get them up there? How can you do it, even with modern technology? But here's the thing. It's happened before. And if it's happened before, I think it can happen again. So, it's not impossible. Now, I've never seen a black-eyed kid, so I don't know. You've probably not either. And I guess until we ever saw one, maybe we'd be very sceptical. Yeah. So, to my mind, no good comes from all these Pandora boxes being opened up. People having this, no good will come from it. Situation at CERN, chucking stuff around, looking for something to step out from this collider. Yeah. And we'll see what this Spanish lady has said, whether it's true or not. Whether children are born with the black eyes. And how strange in light of that. So, yeah, check out the song. I'll try and put that in the link. And my take on it is, if there in the evening there is a on your door and you open it and you encounter a black-eyed kid, don't let them in.